You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Bedford studio today with Juan Paredes from Limitless Apparel. Seen a lot of photography out there, a lot of influencers, and you guys doing a great campaign with guys and girls wearing all your fitness clothing. It looks really cool. That's kind of how I first came about it, and then I recently started, probably in the last year or so, getting back into the gym, started seeing a lot more of it. I go to the Strength Factory, so Whitney and Tyler are down there. See some of the guys down there using your apparel, which, I mean, it's not easy to start an apparel brand, right? Which I'm sure we'll get into. No. But mate, yeah, really appreciate you coming down to the studio to share some stories. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Celaya, Guanajuato. It's in Mexico. Mm-hmm. I was pretty much raised by my grandmother until I was about 9 years old. Yeah. And then I came up here. My dad was already up here, and he brought me up here when I was pretty much 9. And then, but I just, I've been here pretty much ever since. Yeah. I'm about to be 38.
Okay.
On the 22nd of this month. So
almost 30 years of being in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of change then.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
So, and kind of looking forward to see what else changes.
Yeah, definitely. It's I've been here, it'll be 10 years in August.
10 years.
Not as long as you, but definitely seen a bit of change.
Where are you from?
Wales originally. Okay. So in the UK. So yeah, I've been here. I came out to play golf in college, and I ended up staying after school. So love it here. So awesome. So when you came here, where'd you go to high school and school and stuff like that?
When I first came here, I went to Star Spencer. Mm-hmm. But as at the elementary, and then I was kind of getting into, I guess my dad thought I was getting into a lot of trouble. Yeah. So we were going to a church at the time, and they had a little. So my junior high and high school, I went to just a little private church school. Mm-hmm. That had from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. The most kids that we had was I think. While I was there, was like 34 kids. Yeah. So it was just basically just the people from church. Yeah. So, I mean, there was a positive and a negative side to it, I guess. It did kind of keep me out of trouble. It kind of, a lot of who I am, part of who I am kind of was, going to that church. But at the same time, I do feel like I lost out on a lot of, high school,
right? Of course,
school experiences.
No, I totally get it, because I didn't have a huge high school class, but it was big enough. Not big in American standards, but I think I had 300 people in my class, which was a lot, right? But when you go to having 30 to 50 people in a class, and you have that kind of intimate experience with all your classmates. You know absolutely everybody, but then you miss that kind of big school feel, don't you? Yeah. There's kind of, I guess you probably grow, but you don't grow as much because you're not in a bigger, your self-confidence is great, but it's when you go into a bigger group after that, you don't have that, right? I
definitely felt that once I was out of school and just the social part of it, So, but a lot of us that went to school together were, we may not see each other for years, but we pick up right, right where we left off. We were just,
super
we just
tight.
Kind of have a bond,
right.
So.
Yeah. So growing up, are you big into sports growing up? Coming from Mexico, is that, you're a huge football fan, soccer fan.
I actually wasn't.
No?
We played, we didn't really play sports. Yeah. When I was, especially, when I was in Mexico, we just, grandma would basically, when we didn't have school, we'd just get up and she would feed us same breakfast every day. Yeah. And then, which is hot chocolate and a pan, which is like a pastry bread.
Yeah, sure.
And we ate that every day, and then we just went off and played. Yeah. And we would just come back when it's time to eat, but it was never really about sports. We just kind of, I don't know, we just
totally free, running around, having
totally
a great
free
time.
for the most part.
Yeah.
But I mean, at that time, there was really, not much. It was pretty safe around our town.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I definitely do believe. I mean, for me, it's just probably my best childhood moments were when I was still in Mexico, for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know, that we were kind of living poor until I came over here, and, but even especially now when I look back, I'm like, those are probably my happiest moments, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
My grandmother definitely installed, and she was raising 5 of us grandchildren at the time.
Yeah.
She had 12 kids of her own, and until she passed away when she was like 73, she always had grandchildren. She was raising grandchildren.
Yeah.
She had I think a 8-month-old and a 2-year-old and like a 5 or 6-year-old at the time that she passed away. But she was raising 5 of us at the time, and so I mean, definitely she was very about just family and celebrating life.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a lot of my culture, I feel like,
Sure.
And so, we didn't really have much, but we really are definitely our imagination. Just playing around and whatever.
And like super self-fulfilling by hanging out with family, and like you're really joyful, right? And that's one of the things, like, you travel to places, or you go back home and you see, like, okay, like if you come from the States or you've come from the UK, in the sense that, like, your average American or guy from the UK would be like, oh, these people have nothing, but they are the happiest people in the world. And you're just like, why and what makes it, right? And it's no stress, no worries, like you just live in life and having a great time, running around with your friends, and come back when it's time to eat, or come back when it's dark. And I mean, like I said, I just turned 30, so I grew up in the 90s, where growing out, you go out with a football or a rugby ball, and mum would be like, okay, when the street lights come on, it's dark, you need to come home, and you would, right? There's no cell phones, no social media. I do miss that. I can see how that's a good memory for you.
I mean, back whenever when I was young, we only had one phone, and that was at the post office.
Damn.
So like if my dad was to call my grandmother, he would basically call the post office and say, hey, can you tell my mom, send her a message that I'm going to call her on this day at this time. And then it might be a week away or whatever, then somebody will go give her a message, and she'll be there that next week, on that particular time. And that's how we basically, we only had one phone. And but I mean, now, I mean, pretty much a lot of, when I go back, I haven't gone in 8 years. But I plan on going back probably next month or two.
Sure.
But I don't know. A lot of times, I don't even know where I was going to go with that. I don't know. I do feel like back over there, times were just not like the kids over there. Whenever I go back now, it's a lot about basically how it is over here.
Okay.
So definitely the culture has definitely changed a lot from the way it was back then. I don't feel like it's as safe as it used to be. But everybody has a phone now. Everybody has basically internet. Everybody at that time, hardly anybody had a car. So a lot of people rode their bikes. Took the bus everywhere. For me, whenever I go back, I like just walking and taking the bus. I like just to feel how it was back whenever I was younger.
So, you get that nostalgia, right? And that feeling of like, okay, like, and it's always like, same feeling I get when I go back to my hometown and I walk around, or I go back to the places I used to run around and play as a kid. They were massive when you were a kid, right? This place was like a park, felt so big. When you go back there when you're an adult, and you're like, this place isn't big at all. It's like a couple acres maybe. But when you're a kid, it's your entire world and playground, which is, I'm sure it's awesome. I'm sure you'll have a great time when you do go back and see everybody. So you're here, you're going to school. When you're in high school, do you go to university, or do you start working? Like, what is life like when you're in high school?
I actually wasn't very good in school, to be honest. I pretty much walked out of school when I was 11th grade. So when I came here, I didn't know any English, so I struggled a lot. I actually, my parents, my dad and my stepmom at the time, that held me back twice in third grade, just because I still didn't know enough. I came here like in January, and I went straight into third grade, and of course by the end of the year, the school passed me, but I'm like, I didn't even know any, so they held me back, and then the following year, they held me back again. So I was always like, kind of like, for a while, I was 2 grades behind, and then when I entered into the church school, I ended up skipping 7th grade. And then my dad was pretty much always installed in me to pretty much how to work.
Yeah.
I mean, any break after school, if I had the time, or any, spring break, summer, I always went to work with him. So, and he only has a 3rd grade education. He's been working since he was 9 years old. My grandparents pulled him out of school when he was 9, and he had to start working. And, which a lot of his siblings did too. So, my dad, education was important, but definitely all he knew was how to work. So it definitely installed that into me. Yeah. And then, but when I was in 11th grade, they told us that they were going to close down the school.
Sure.
That was going to be the last year. And then, so I just, 2 weeks before school ended, I just like, well, what's the point? So I just quit, and later down the years, I ended up getting my GED, but I just went straight to work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was working for my dad at the time. He was working for, used to be a Garner's Tree Service.
Okay.
So he's been doing that for almost, 25 plus years. And so, but that's basically how I started working.
Sure.
And then, I mean, so school wasn't really, I was never really the best at it.
Yeah.
To be honest.
But, I mean, I totally get it, because, with hard work that your dad's instilled in you, and a lot of people don't get this, right? Especially if they grew up here. Like, we didn't grow up here. We know what it's like back home. We know how much opportunity is in this country if you work hard. And, with everything that goes on in the world and politics or whatever, and people who are here, and I tell this to everybody who will listen, it's like, you don't understand the opportunity that there is here. Like, ask any immigrant, if whoever's comes into power next and they don't like it, they're not going to leave the country because of it, because this country has so much opportunity and potential.
Right.
If, going back to what your dad said, if you work hard. And I don't think there's another country like that. And that's why I love being here. That's why I want to be here for the rest of my life, because there's so much opportunity here to start a business, whatever that business is, if you work hard.
Yeah.
And there's many stories like yours and myself that, people come here from other countries. They might come for university, they might come for whatever. They work here, their family's here, anything like that. If they work hard, they can start a business.
Yeah.
And I think, people here who grow up here, they need to be told that, because they don't realize how good it is here compared to growing up in the UK with, entrepreneurial culture isn't very big in the UK, or growing up in Mexico where, like you said, you had one phone, like all these little things.
Yeah.
Now, when you wake up in the morning, like, there's opportunity everywhere.
I mean, there is.
I
mean, I think I was 14 when I realized, like, kind of the opportunities, and, it was a privilege for me to be here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, whenever I came here, my dad I already had pretty much my green card. I was a resident since I was like 6.
Sure.
But my dad was trying to get me to come over here when I was younger, but I didn't. I only saw my dad like 3 times. He left me with my grandmother when I was like 2.5.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I came with him when I was almost 9.
Yeah.
So he said he only came to see me like 3 times in that span time.
So when your dad left you with your grand, was that to just come to America to build a better life, to bring you guys out in the future, to make more money? Like, why?
That for him? That was the culture back then, kind of like, sure. Which a lot of my older cousins that were my dad, which are actually my dad's nephews, but they're pretty much the same age, because my grandmother had 12 kids.
Sure.
So a lot of them are. But yeah, the culture, definitely was, for the dad to come over here and then just kind of send money back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To help support the family. My mother was always around, but she would go between my grandmother and my other grandmother's house, her mom's. She would just, stayed a couple of days here and there. But I mean, I never felt the need that I was without a mom, but my grandmother was just the nurturer, you know what I mean? I don't know, so she...
Just the center of the family that kept everybody...
of the whole family.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that was just pretty much more of the culture, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you leave school, you go to work with Dad. How long, and do you get your own job after that? You know, when you start with Dad, do you get bored and you're like, hang on a second, I can do some other stuff myself? Like, what happens then?
At that time, whenever, let's see, I think Garner's, we call him Brother Garner.
Yeah.
He passed away, I think, mid last year. Okay. But he ended up moving out of state, and he left the company to my dad to run here. And my dad, after a while, he figured out, I mean, he was running the company, so he figured out, I can just do this on my own. Right. So eventually he ended up buying all the equipment from Brother Garner, and then just starting out his own company. Me and my dad are a lot alike, so pretty stubborn.
Yeah. And
my dad's very old-fashioned, so I'm more like, my dad is like, it's my way or the highway. I'm like, there's other ways to go around things, easier maybe, but my dad, you know, I respect that about him.
I can do this, I'm gonna do it, I don't need anybody's help, let me do it myself.
And so, I mean, overall for our relationship at the time, it was better for me to just get another job. Once he started his own company, because at that time, you know, Brother Garner was my boss, so I was like, okay, my dad was basically like my supervisor, so I mean, you know. So, but after my dad had full control, I was like, this ain't gonna work.
This is gonna.
So, we ended up basically. Yeah. I ended up getting a job at a cabinet shop, and I ended up working there for almost 8 years. I definitely learned a lot there.
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, when I first started working, when I was like 10 years old, Brother Garner used to just pay me $5 a day.
Wow.
And that was it. I mean, I just went to work for my dad, and I worked, you know, and then the next summer, I ended up getting like $10 a day. And I ended up working myself up to $15 a day. Yeah. And I was working, getting up in the morning, being at work by 8, and coming home by 5. So, I mean, I was working all day with my dad. And so, but I mean, I didn't know, like, I didn't do anything physical really when I was in Mexico with my grandmother. My grandmother did not allow us to go help my grandpa work. Okay. I guess he couldn't discipline us, he couldn't do anything, so I mean, she just let us, you know, we were pretty much just kids.
That's so cool that she basically just protected your childhood, right? And said, you are going to be kids until you have to, but you're going to be kids. I think she couldn't
provide that for her own children, and her grandchildren, basically, she was just...
That's really special.
So, a totally different person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but and then, I don't know if I was 14, maybe 15, one of my friends had started up a lawn business, and then he told me he wanted me to go work for him for the summer, and then school just ended, and then my dad is like, are you coming to work? And I was like, no, you tell Brother Garner that I'm not going to come to work. I got a job offer for $6 an hour. Yeah. And I'm working for him for $15 a day. Yeah. And then he's like, all right, I'll tell him. And then he came back later that afternoon after work. He said, if you come to work with us again, he'll pay you $8 an hour. Yeah. And I'm like, what? Like this whole time? Like, so, I mean, you know, but it definitely taught me, you know, just, you know, to work hard regardless, you know, of what
value and what you're getting.
Yeah. Really, you know, so I mean, it taught me a lot.
Sure.
So to me, it's just, you know, but I always kind of had this mentality of like I wasn't good enough type of. Yeah. My dad's very like, if you do something, he follows up with what you could have done better. It was never a good job. He's told me he tells me now more now, but as an adult. But growing up, he basically, he only told me once that, you know, I did a good job and that he was proud of me. And that is because I heard my stepmom overheard her say, you need to tell him that you did a good job and that you're proud of him. So I think, and I understand probably my dad never heard that on his own, you know, growing up. Yeah. So I'm very like, I try to understand people and how, what makes them who they are and what they do. And, you know what I mean? So, you know, so to me, but at the same time, I was a kid growing up, and you know,
you've learned so many lessons from him by being the way he was, rather than him sugarcoating everything and saying you're doing great where you're really not, right?
But I mean, definitely I learned a lot, but at the same time my self-confidence was
Yeah.
Just when I started the cabinet shop, when I started working there, I was just always I was very observant of people. So I was always just observing what are they doing, and if I knew what they were supposed to do, why they wouldn't, what things that I could do that they're not doing, or sometimes I would just be like, if they just did this little bitty thing, it would make a whole thing, a whole lot different, just a little bit better. So I was always that person that did just the little extra steps that in people's eyes looked to be a huge improvement.
Sure.
And I'm like,
but to you it's really nothing. But it's like you said, little things, they all add up, right? And it makes someone's life much easier with little things.
And then eventually just I thought I wasn't working hard enough. I was just always doing more and more and more and more. And then I think I started at $7 an hour, and then within 2 weeks I got $7.50, and I think I got 3 raises within a year. And then so ultimately that was I still, up until I later on in years, I didn't realize my worth as far as what I can offer or bring to the table when it comes to a company. It was always people telling me you're doing a good job, but I just didn't it didn't really connect with me
and understand why. Right? Just because it probably felt normal to you to do, if I'm going to do this, it makes so much sense. It makes my job easier if I do a little bit thing. And then you realize that it's affecting others people's jobs, and they're realizing it, that Juan's doing awesome things over there that's making my life easier, even though he's not being asked to do it or he's not being paid extra to do it. And effectively over time then you get raises and you become a valued employee, don't you?
I was always kind of like the person, I've always been one to so at my job, if I would just kind of observe if they told me this is your job, you're just supposed to do this. And then if I'm handing my work off to someone else, I always think about that person. If I just did this a little bit different, will that help him to do his job better? And I kind of carry that throughout my life, and I always felt like it's come back to help me out. So that person is grateful because you did something, you know what I mean? Or they might ask you, hey, you don't have to do this, but can you do this? It might make it, no problem. If I can do it, I will do it. And then there's been times where I've been in a bind, or I've been, needed help, and they're there to help me because, I created this kind of relationship. And I think through my life, I've created relationships that way to where if I'm able to help someone else just to make their job easier or whatever, then there's ever a time and need for me, there's, I've always had people, or when it comes to job, basically opportunities, my name gets mentioned or whatever the case. I don't do that on purpose. I just think, I don't know.
It's just kind of instilled in you, right? That's just your product, your upbringing, and the people that you're around, and the brother gardener or your dad, and just others, and grandma. It all comes to just all these little life lessons of adding value, which is really awesome. Yeah,
my dad was very basically, I want you to know what I'm about to do next. I said, don't wait for me to tell you. I don't want to ask you. I said, you just better watch me all the time. You better be ready. And I was always okay. And I was always watching his movements. And I'm like, okay, he's there. Okay, he's about to do this. Okay, so I better have this ready. And that was my relationship with my dad, And once I got older, I was kind of probably more defiant with him. I was like, dude, just relax. You know what I mean? But he was,
So you're doing all this work, you were at the cabinet company for 8 years and climbing the ladder. Are you working out at this time? Where does fitness add into everything that you're doing, and then an apparel line that comes with it?
I didn't really start working out until I was 14, which is just doing push-ups and sit-ups when I was at home. It was when I was 17, my parents got me a gym membership. But ultimately, I've kind of dealt with depression and anxiety since I was a younger kid, so that was my my therapy. So it wasn't until basically once I was at the cabinet shop, I just kind of wanted to build my own kind of furniture. I just wanted to build things, and then I ended up going to I think it was a 3-month class for joinery school to learn how to join different different ways to join wood together, whatever.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing kind of furniture on the side. My goal at that time was actually to kind of design my own kitchens and my own furniture. So I did furniture that I wanted to, then I just sold it on the market or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the time, me and my ex-wife, we had a kid. His name's Kingston. He's 13 years old now. But she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and wanted to have another child. So I loved what I was doing, but it wasn't enough to be able to afford that.
Sure.
Because we were both working, to support, each other and our son. And so I pretty much ended up one of the church members where I went to church at the time, when I was younger, he worked in the oil field. He was a manager of an inspection company. And so he heard that I was looking for a job, and he gave me a call, and so basically he offered me a job, and I think I started there like making $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And which is actually what I left working for at the cabinet shop. And then at that time, so I was working. In my interview, they just basically told me, like, you don't have any days off. You're on call 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll schedule some days off, but it doesn't mean that you'll be off. And if you tell me up front, like, the worst thing to expect, then at that time, I'll make a decision whether that's something that I want to do or not.
Right.
And then, so I was like, yeah, I'm game. So, I was working a lot, and me and my within that, I think I started that job 2011 in March, but me and my ex-wife, we ended up going through a separation at the end of the year. By December, I was working a lot, basically never really, I would go 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks without a day off.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, one, you can have this weekend off, but then I would just get a call, and I was just
You're
that
gone.
guy.
Yeah.
And definitely my manager at the time, he knew how I was, so I'm not going to say he took advantage of that, but he did. And
He knew you were reliable, and you could, if you wanted someone, he'd call you first.
And he knew that I was that guy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it paid off for me down the road.
Sure.
Because I created a name for myself. But at the same time, but me and my ex, we got together really young, out of high school. So it just, but we ended up getting a divorce, and so I was pretty much, I have like primary custody of my son, but so that was definitely a struggle at that time to raising him by myself. And I was single for about 2 years, and then ended up meeting my wife, Brooke, that I'm with right now, and she definitely, I don't know, she definitely has changed my life in a lot of ways. So, I've been in the oil field for about 10 years. At the time, whenever the basically the brand kind of came along, I've always had like moments throughout my life where I hit kind of a depressed state.
Sure.
And going to the gym or even going to counseling, that it just helps me out. But I think at the time, whenever I was working anywhere from 75 to 95 hours a week.
Wow.
And I was pretty busy, making good money, but
no time for anything else.
I was just working for them. There's a lot of overtime, and I only had 4 days off throughout the month. And my wife, she would definitely she's a planner, so she would plan my whole weekend already. You know what I mean? So ultimately, I told her, at least Saturday you can book it up. By Sunday, I just got I just want to wind down. But ultimately, I just got into a very depressed state for about 8 months, and I didn't really know what to do about it. I didn't know how to shake it off, and I just felt like I knew I needed to do something for myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that was, but I was just and because when I was younger, I used to draw. I picked up photography when I was like 17, and I did photography as a hobby for myself until I was about 21, 22.
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, I built my own furniture. So I always had this kind of like, you know,
Release, right?
yeah,
Something
just
to
creative,
do. Yeah.
you know, kind of escape. And
Yeah.
then I wanted to, a clothing brand was like, I just wanted to do a clothing brand for like 3 years prior to that. But I remember I was praying a lot at that time and just trying to figure out, and I felt like God wanted me to just do something to kind of give back, and I didn't know what that was. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing until like probably a year or so down the road, whenever I actually started Limitless.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to my wife, telling her that I wanted to do this. I feel like I need, a creative escape. I just, I basically, I'm working a lot, but for someone else, and I'm not, giving myself anything.
Yeah.
And she was, she just finished, I think she just graduated. She went to occupational therapy, and she just graduated that December, and then of 17, I believe. So I was talking to her that I wanted to do a brand, and at that time she was like, okay, I don't, she didn't really realize,
right.
All she knows when I met her, I was just working all the time. And so I just kind of started started the process as far as like just drawing a logo and just kind of like trying to figure out a name and all this and that, but nothing like too serious. And then my wife wanted to be a kind of a stay-at-home mom, for a little, because we had I think we had Zane at the time.
Yeah.
And then so I just didn't know. I knew that I would have to kind of slow down in the oil field for me to do anything for myself.
Sure.
And then I remember like she was basically saw when she says, well, right now, like I want to be a stay-at-home mom, all this and that. That means I got to continue working, to provide for the family. But then I think she saw that I was kind of like that. It kind of affected me because I'm thinking like, okay, we're planning on having 2 kids.
Yeah.
She probably won't go back, start her career until, at least the little one is like 3 years old. So I'm looking at another 5 years plus, who knows, that I'm like, but I just knew that I needed something, and then she's like, well, like, let's just do it. And then we really didn't have like, the extra money to really do that. But she said, I got a $1,200 credit card that I paid off, and then we'll just use that. And then, so when it came to the name, I had about 6 or 7 names that I, trying to pick from.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, like, I was just like, where am I at with this, within this process? And, even though, I was way older, I still had that insecurity if I was good enough type of thing.
Sure.
So a lot of fear came into me as like, am I too old to just completely just start something new? And I didn't want to do it like just completely like just quit my job type of thing as just something on the side for myself.
Yeah.
It was more like an escape at that.
It's just a hobby that makes you money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, it wasn't even about the money. It's just, I just needed just to do something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And so I basically, I wanted to, I ended up quitting my job, because that added to a lot of where I was, where I was kind of unhappy where I was at. And I took about, at that time, about over a $30,000 pay cut. And then, so I had a little bit more time to do the brand, and I started with the logo, and where the name came from. I remember more than anything, just I knew that I would regret not doing something that I really wanted to do. I'm the type of person that if something that I want to do in life, and if it doesn't go away, I just like it's like an itch that you just have to scratch.
Yeah.
and I just knew that eventually that I would regret it not doing it, because it was following me around for 3 years.
Right.
And so, and then I saw this quote, once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. And that just spoke to me. I was like, basically, because I was afraid of putting my family in debt, quitting my job, because ultimately I wanted to quit my job just because I just wanted to. I needed it. That was too much,
Yeah.
I was just tired of basically working my life away and not spending any time with my family, my kids, and my wife. And, so a lot of factors came into that.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do something for myself. And then so I pretty much, that quote just kind of spoke to me. And that's why pretty much Limitless came from. I just applied that to myself.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I can't, throughout the whole process, especially in the beginning, it's like I was still insecure. I was still nervous. I didn't know like if this was going to work or not.
Right.
But the biggest thing that kind of drove me was like, I just didn't want to regret it. Not just doing something that I wanted to do.
Right.
And I didn't really, like, even my wife asked me like, what do you want to get from this? And I said, what do you want to accomplish? And I told her, like, honestly, if I can just, create a message and inspire people that the way the brain is inspiring me to do something out of my comfort zone and just do something completely different. And, and if we just break even, as long as I'm enjoying the process, and if I just break even and I don't put us in debt or anything like that, and if I go to the gym one day and I see my shirt, I made it.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
It's worth it.
And honestly, that was it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think we started, all I had was a logo, and then I ended up finding a model. All I had at the time was just t-shirts, just with my logo. And Trovell, one of my ambassadors, I just saw him. I used to follow basically like a lot of the gyms and stuff, so I knew that he was kind of into fitness, and so I just messaged him and told him I wanted to start a brand. I said all I have is a logo, and I wanted to do, would you be available to do a photo shoot? And he's like, yeah. And so that's kind of how I started.
Yeah.
And I started on Instagram. I wasn't on Instagram, and then my goal was just to kind of put it on social media and just kind of see how it went. And then I kind of built it up just doing photography, just doing pictures and just put them on Instagram. I think we started in July of 2018, and then by December, that's when we kind of launched the website. Yeah. And it came to a point to where by that time, when I was doing all the photo shoots, it was a lot of summer stuff. Yeah. So I knew my challenge, but when it came December, all I had was like, tanks, t-shirts, and crop tops, and that was pretty much it. And I was
hoodies or little pants or whatever.
This. Yeah. And this in December. Yeah. But I remember when we finally got the website together and we did a release, pretty much we sold one shirt. Yeah. And, I had a lot of messages like, whenever you get it up and running, like, can you start the website? I want to order on this and that. Yeah. So I saved some more money, got everything, to get to that point. And then, I remember feeling, and I was talking to my wife, I was like, I feel like I failed. Like, it's like I only sold one shirt. Yeah. And so, but then I just remember like all that time and that I already put into it, the money that, that went into it. And I just I did have like a moment. I'm like, is this something that I was really supposed to do? Yeah. But then I've always played it safe growing up. I was like, if it's meant to be, God would just open those doors for me.
Take care of me. And
basically, and like, if it's not, then I always kind of vert away from it and went a different direction. I was always that guy. But in that moment, I did something completely different than, at that time, I'm like, I'd spent money that I didn't really have to start the brand. But at the same time, in that moment, I was like, I did feel like I failed. I sold one shirt, right? And I was like, I spend too much time, spend too much money on this. That just means I'm gonna have to work harder. Yeah. And I just chose to go a different route than I normally would just be like, this is just not meant to be.
Yeah.
And then within the next day and, week, like, it just, the sales started coming in. All those people that messaged me started just, like the first, you see on TV or whatever, like on, Instagram or Facebook, whatever, when, everybody has their launch and everybody orders a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and you get that bing, 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 and the orders are coming in.
I mean, it wasn't the case for me at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it did taught me, I'm glad it happened to where I only sold one shirt.
Yeah.
Because it taught me, like, my natural,
right.
the way that I am is like, it's not meant to be type of thing. But in that moment, I chose, like, you know what? That means I want it bad enough, so I'm just going to have to make sure that, it's
right.
it's successful.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So you took all the photos as well? Is that you do all the photography?
No.
In the beginning, did you do the photography, or do you always get other people in?
So far, I've always gotten other people. Whenever I quit photography is right before, like, basically, the digital. I did film.
Got you. Okay. Yeah.
And I was actually really turned off by it. I got in my head, like, I don't even want, like, I thought I was like, I was the type of guy to where at that time where I was like, they were just cheating, they're editing, all this and that. Like, it takes a lot of time to get the perfect, lighting,
composure and all the rest of it.
Because, that's a talent of itself.
Yeah.
But then overall, I mean, all this took over.
Sure.
And so, but at the same time, I mean, I still have a love for, like, videography and photography. Yeah. And I have a lot of respect for it. It takes a special type of talent and a gift to even to edit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love definitely behind the scenes and all this and that. One of my goals is to definitely do this on my own again. You know what I mean? At least, just because I now seeing other people do it. You know what I mean? I'm so close to it, and and helping me with the brand. It's like I have another itch to where, like, okay, this is something that I want to do.
Get your creative juices flowing again.
So
by
just
taking
to add
photos.
to the brand itself.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, when you look at the Instagram, and for everyone listening, I'll put the link down in the description below, but it's at limitless.apparel.co. You can go to that and see the amazing photographers that have taken awesome photos of the guys and the girls that you have modeling for you. Tell me about, like, what it's been like launching a clothing brand using social media, right? Using Instagram and getting it out there through that, and using Instagram as a tool to sell. What's that been like?
A learning experience.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's definitely not easy. You got to get very comfortable with setbacks. And I've gotten very comfortable with setbacks. I'm the type of guy that takes a step back and takes 2 steps forward. So that's ultimately, like, how I, got to this point. I'm still everything. Like, I Googled pretty much how to start a brand. Like, basically, I just, as far as, like, the social media part, I mean, I really don't really have the answers. I mean, the way that I did it was just mainly more of, involving, just the community.
Sure.
Like,
are you focused on, like, brand ambassadors and people who've I hate the word influencers, but people who work out in the gyms that have a good following and stuff like that. And
even the following, it doesn't really, followers don't mean, I don't want to cuss, but.
No, I get you. It's not everything.
It's not everything.
It's the person too.
I look at very more of the type of person you are.
Gotcha.
For, like, and a lot of the times it's just people that I ask for a photo shoot and they continue to support us and then eventually become our ambassador.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's very more just the type of person you are. I mean, I got some ambassadors that might have a couple hundred versus, 10 to 20, who knows? And, a lot of people support them as far as, like, using their code. To me, it's just mainly more.
Yeah.
And I mean, even for us, like, some ambassadors may not, they meet all the requirements and they may not even get a sale, but it's like, I mean, it's like, it's a family for me.
Sure.
Like, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for my ambassadors. I'm very grateful for them, because ultimately, like, they are the face of Limitless.
Sure.
Like nobody really knows, you know what I mean? I don't put myself out there. I didn't do this for look at me type of thing. You know what I mean? I didn't do this for any type of hype or
Right.
I did it because I felt like I needed to do something for myself. And it was mainly more behind the scenes, the creative part about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm very definitely like, even if you just bought one shirt, you know what I mean? And my ambassadors, that's at this point, that's got to where, you know, where we are right now.
Well, and I guess it goes back to the message, right? Like when you get that quote, you know, and you talk about your insecurities, your anxieties, your depression, and helping people go through that by going through fitness, or I mean any aspect of fitness, right?
Yeah.
You've got guys and girls who do CrossFit, do everything, competitive weightlifting, whatever it is. It's all around fitness, but you know, I'm sure, like you said, the community, it's a bigger message, isn't it? It's not like, oh, look at this awesome apparel we have. When you look at the message of the business and the brand, it goes to, and that, what you said about not making, you know, as long as you break even, right? It's not about that. I love that. I think it's really cool because there's a lot of brands who start and they're like, I'm going to start a brand because I'm going to make a ton of money out of it. And the markup's great and the margins are awesome and the profit margins, whatever. And some of them might not succeed because they get to that point where you said, you know, I only sold one shirt and they give up, you know, they're like, oh, it's not meant to be or whatever. And they give up. Well, you remembered your mission and why you do this, because personally to you, it means a lot more by doing this than it does not doing it.
Yeah.
And you get to where you are today, and the company just, you know,
Pretty accurate like
continues
that.
to grow,
What
right?
you just said,
That's awesome.
I was more scared not to do it, like
Yeah.
to keep going, than I was just to quit at that moment, because I knew what I needed. I didn't know exactly, but I knew that I needed something.
Yeah.
And I knew, like, from when I first started the photo shoot, like in July, and then we launched the website, you know, basically in December, just the difference in me and how I felt, and just, you know, I enjoyed it, and just it was an escape for me. So it's like I was afraid to, after one shirt, you're like, that means I quit and I go back to my depressed, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, I didn't want to let that go. And I'm like, then I'm, you know, I just like, I can't stop. You know, that completely changed the way everything that I became, you know, to me, like the name and especially that quote, I apply it to myself, you know, on a daily. I am not that quote. I didn't start out to be that, you know, what the brand stands behind. Like I still struggle with things, but because I do own like a clothing brand now, and it's like, I'm kind of like, I have to keep it going. So there's different things that come as the brand grows that I've never done before, but I'm just, a lot of times I'm just like, the fear and things are just, it's rare that if I have any fear about things, or if I don't know anything, I'll just figure it out. You know, nothing really ever goes right with this clothing brand.
Sure.
But at the same time, that's kind of a normal to me. Like, you know, photo shoots or launches or anything, like, but at the same time, when I look at, you know, like our Instagram, I'm like, no one really would, just by scrolling down, you know what I mean, that they're going to notice that all the work and everything that doesn't go right.
They don't know.
We're, even in the midst of all that, we're still able to create something that, you know, it's, that take that message for themselves. It doesn't really matter if it's about fitness or not. To me, it's really not about the fitness part. Like, the message. It's just about my life and the way, just, you know, as, you know, that I apply to myself just in an everyday life.
What's been some of the like biggest lessons that you've learned? And mentioning what you just said, you know, people behind the scenes, they scroll down Instagram, they don't see the you know, the ups and downs. What's been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned by doing this process?
The biggest lessons, I think, to me, just being, you're gonna get rejection, and I think that's one of the biggest fears that I had, but overall is one of the things that I'm probably the most comfortable with. Nothing ever is really, you know, it's gonna go right. I think that's another lesson, to just kind of learn to stay calm and work around there and around that, and just kind of just, the job still has to be done. And you still, so that's another lesson for me, that what I've learned, is just kind of be, you know, what you plan, how things, you know, you want to, especially when I get, with a photographer or videographer, and you might come up with an idea together, and then you're just, if it doesn't go as planned, but it just, I just, just to be patient. And overall for me is, I think the one thing that I take the most out of it for myself is just knowing that I'm putting this, type of mentality into someone else. I think, I don't know, there's a lot of lessons that I've learned. And I don't really want to give everything away, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Just because, there's other brands. I don't know. I don't like telling too much.
I think the main thing, just listening to what you said, the main thing, and when we look back, right, it comes from, all the lessons you've had from grandmother, from dad, all these lessons that you've had in your life, comes to this, right? And it goes back to hard work and not giving up, which is awesome. And just like, if you want to do this, you can do it. Just work at it, go through the setbacks, learn from your mistakes, and just build a good team, build a good community that is passionate about, the brand, what it stands for. And it's great to hear that. If someone's listening to this and they're like, they love fitness, right? They have a bit of a following, or they don't have a following, but they love the mission. How can they be an ambassador? Like, how does that work out as well?
As far as the way we choose our ambassadors, I think, like I said earlier, normally is if, they've been in one of our photo shoots, honestly, is just, I don't really want necessarily, so I still work in the oil field. I still work throughout the week. So my wife, she's got a part-time job because, I'm from when I first quit my job to now, last year, and COVID affected a lot when the oil field just slowed down.
Yeah.
I made $50,000 less than what I've, made.
Yeah.
I made last year, as far as my personal job,
sure.
What I made pretty much my first year in the oil field 10 years ago. And I've made good money, but I've always lived within my means to where I've always knew where the oil field goes up and down. So I always prepare myself,
of course,
in that sense. But at the same time, my wife got a part-time job at nighttime. So 4 times out of the week, 3 to 4 times out of the week, she works at night. So I still come home. As soon as I get home, she goes to work. I got 3 boys. Yeah. Kingston 13, Zane 4, and Cade, he's 1. So I'm like in mom-dad mode.
You are dad mode, yeah.
So she doesn't get home till about 10, 11:30 sometimes. Yeah. So, and then if you pay attention, to when I post something, like the post that I just posted last night, I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It's in my free time whenever. So I'm very, very grateful for all my ambassadors, and they don't have to, to me, how I choose the ambassadors is a lot of basically people that just support the brand. People that actually, that you can tell that the message, does something for them. Yeah. So, because ultimately, I still work very hard to support my family, and then all my free time is basically for my ambassadors and for the brand. Yeah. So it's we definitely get a lot of messages, to be in a photo shoot, to send me a free stuff so I can help you promote it.
I'm sure you get that all the time.
And that's okay. That's great that you're but at the same time, for me, it's just mainly more I want you to want to be part of this brand, not just the material.
Not send me free stuff and I'll post pictures.
I definitely does this, I want you to be, this message do something for you. I want you to, basically, actually like our clothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, that's just, it makes me, as I'm doing all this extra work, all the extra work outside of my normal life, you know what I mean? It's just, it just helps me to just keep moving myself, because I know I'm doing it for a purpose, for my ambassadors and for the people. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You want people who have, like, they're invested in you, they're invested in the business because they love what it stands for, not people who are reaching out and they're like, hey, I quote, love your stuff, would love some free t-shirts and I'll post some things, rather than, you might never have heard that person before, right? And that might be one of 10 or 15 messages they have sent to apparel companies, right? And they're just trying to get some free stuff to look whatever. But if you start with people who are already buying your stuff, and then you just say, hey, you've been buying some cool stuff, like, would you like to be in a photo shoot? Sure. Would you like a discount code? Sure. And then they write affiliate links, and you post the discount code, and then they become an ambassador.
Right.
Which is much better, I think, as a business owner, because there's so many people out there want free stuff, right? Generation now, we always want things for free, or we want things now, and like, well, what have you done to deserve that? What have having followers is great, but what makes you worth putting this t-shirt on? Like, what have you gone through, and what do you stand for? I'm sure that's a hard thing for you to do, right? Because there's so many people probably coming to you and asking you
and
that.
I don't really want to look at it as like, what have you done to deserve that?
Yeah.
For me, it's just mainly more like, I still don't take money from the brand.
Gotcha.
Like last year, we had as we had a downturn in the oil field, like, my hours got cut. I had to take a 15% pay cut. I mean, so to make up the difference, me and one of my coworkers, we would, do Postmates together.
Yeah.
We would go donate plasma just to make up. I would sell stuff on the market, like I still grind, and I still basically to support my family.
Yeah.
I started with $1,200. That $1,200 was gone with way before I even launched the website, launched our first release. So to me, is like, by April of 19, I got to a point, it's like, I can't put any more money. I just can't afford it anymore. You know what I mean? And I had money that the profit was, I was like, I'm just gonna this is all I have, and I'm gonna have to make this brand work off of that. And that's it. But it forced me, and it wasn't that much, so I was like, it just forced me to be more
resourceful,
but just more creative.
Sure.
Is how to promote it, how to reach people in different ways, or just overall, like, I've done things where I might take a $2,000 loss, and I'll see that money back later, but I mean,
short term it's a hit, but in the long term,
but I mean, it's one of those things to where, it hasn't been. I never really taken money from. I stopped putting my own money on. Basically a couple months after we launched the website, but I got to. I remember, so. We had our 5-year anniversary, me and my wife, in September, and my hours were already cut, my pay cut was cut, and so we really didn't have the extra money, because I don't touch Limitless. And so, I did take $200 from Limitless, the first time I've ever taken anything, and I ain't gonna lie, it did feel kind of like I felt like I was, taking,
taking candy from a baby.
I literally did. I felt like I was taking away just one of my kids. Just like, but I knew, my wife, she helps me with the website and filling orders and stuff like that while I'm at work. She'll run to the post office, in the mornings, or, when she's running errands, and drop the orders out for me. But overall, in that time, I mean, it definitely, but we needed it as far as where we were for our marriage and everything. And so I don't take money from the brand, because I knew where I started. And now, we're, more profitable, it's growing. But that's another thing when it comes to the, people that might want to become our ambassador. It's like, I try to, as the brand grows, I put more into the brand. In the beginning, I was, all I had money, realistically, from the time I did the first photo shoot to the time I did the website, was just to do photo shoots. That was it. You know what I mean? And then I saved my money, started the website so we can do a release. And then as the money started coming in, I had to choose: do I come up with something new, or do I restock? You know what I mean? And that was my struggle. It was like always like pick and choose what's more important at this time. And so now, as we're growing, I can, do a new release. Now I can maybe do a girl and a guy's release at the same time.
Yeah.
And I can restock. Maybe there's an event that I have to buy supplies to or whatever. Yeah. I can do that. You know what I mean? So now it comes to the point to like now I'm able to give my ambassadors more some free clothing for meeting their requirements. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm growing it, but I'm as the brand grows, more money needs to be put back into it. You know what I mean? So, and I just, that's why I don't like to take money away from it, because I'm not at that point to where it's doing more for me, I guess, here than it is like, it's not about the money for me.
Yeah.
And I take more of a pride, like enjoyment. I don't even want to say pride, but just fulfillment.
Sure.
Of, giving back.
Yeah.
I want to make sure like I'm doing more for my ambassadors, because I'm very grateful for them. Working with new people.
Yeah.
I love working with different photographers and videographers. You know what I mean? So I mean, I just want to create.
That's really cool.
So
yeah, no, it is really cool. And to that point where you talk about giving clothing to your ambassadors to fit their needs, one of the things I saw, I went to shoot some photos of a CrossFit event in Tulsa last year, and Sydney, who's one of your her entire team was in Limitless clothing.
Yeah.
And a guy I was in college with, Anderson, who's a trainer at Coda, he was on her team, and I was chatting to him. I was like, dude, this stuff's really cool. Like, tell me about it. And he was like, oh, Sydney's an ambassador for this company, and that's one of the places I heard of the brand as well.
Yeah.
So that's really neat to do that. Mate, I want to thank you for coming in. This has been a pleasure. Thanks for sharing your story. I know, like you just mentioned, you don't really, put yourself out there on the social media, on the brand or whatever, but it means a lot for you to come in. Hopefully people listen to this story, love the background. It inspires someone to go start their own brand, or reach out, or get into fitness, or, if they're suffering from depression, reach out, whatever it is. But yeah, thanks for coming in. And for everyone listening, I'll post all the links down to their website, social media. You can go check it out, Limitless Apparel. And we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.